number 20. This is also a public hearing. And just a quick note before I even read it, well, I'll read it first and I'll let you know. Ordinance amending Title 12 of the City Code, being the zoning ordinance of said city and changing the boundaries of certain districts therein. Zone Z2 suburban district to Z7 specific use district for property generally located on the north side of the Mercy campus on 1st Street Southwest between South Taylor Avenue and Linden Drive in the city of Mason City, Iowa. This will be on first, and we'll have the public hearing in a second. Just a note to the public, we do have in 2012 4-2 paragraph N in City Code. It does read as follows: approval of proposed text amendment or rezoning shall require a majority vote of the City Council. However, in rezoning cases, if the owners of 20% or more of the area of the lots included in such proposed rezoning area, or the property owners of 20% or more of the property which is located within 200 feet of the exterior boundaries of the property for which the rezoning is proposed, object to the rezoning in writing, the rezoning shall not become effective except by the favorable vote of at least 3/4 of all members of the City Council. In our case, that would be a 5-vote threshold. We have had turned into staff a valid petition, and it has been, this is actually folks, valid petition. They have met that threshold, so we will be working on a 5-vote threshold this evening, and we will open the public hearing, and you, of course, as has been before, we will have 5 minutes, and the clock is right up there. So.
Hello, my name is Eric. I live on 85 Linden Drive in Mason City, and just like to talk about our neighborhood in terms of what a citizen's perspective is. Start off with historic neighborhoods count. As we'll all tell our story, what we're drawn by is we're seeing really positive momentum in the area of restoration and keeping historic properties in place. If we look back at what's happened with the Park Inn and look at the possibility that could have been lost, the decision has been made to tear down. I might not on caucus night have sat in the salon downstairs where the group of British journalists talking about the caucus. I mean, it's a showpiece for the town. Forest Park, we feel, is in that same vein. It was established in 1916. Yes, it's always pointed out Mercy was there first. If we look at where it is, excuse my shaking hand, it's always been the heart of the neighborhood, and we understand what Mercy does for the community. That's not a question. We're just looking at the process. I'm glad to hear, as I always do when I tune in Channel 4, when you look at the process, there's give and take. And that's what we're hoping for in terms of having more discussion in terms of the process. It's also hard to look at a project on a flat piece of paper and know how to translate it into a finished project. It's just very difficult. We appreciate what Mercy's done to actually walk us through, stake the area off. It makes a big difference to us, the citizen, in terms of understanding what's being proposed and what can take place. This is the street that's under discussion, the first street. It's been in this position since 1916, although the hospital has obviously grown out to it. That's the buffer that stands between us today. It's a public right-of-way with a sidewalk. It's heavily tree-lined, and it actually has a historic house. It's the first house that was moved into this, was restored from, it was moved from downtown to this location because it was considered historic. That's one of the houses being considered for demolition. Again, looking at the site plan, again, it's pretty flat. Interpretation of standards. I'm not a legal expert or anything else, but I've had a chance to peruse the public site, obviously on code. Let's look at the most restrictive without imposing the highest standards. That's essentially what the zoning top tier first impression is. Let's look at what's the hardest to achieve. The City Council recognizes the Mason City Comprehensive Plan. The reason I brought that up is I sat through a planning and zoning meeting, and I, as a citizen, didn't know what the comprehensive plan was, but it was used to say that we have a mission, we have a vision for the growth of Mason City in its entirety, and we have to be respectful of that growth in terms of there has to be give and take when employers are looking to expand. This is a staff memorandum that went out. It pretty much says what we're discussing today in terms of looking at the vacation, or specifically in this case rezoning from the Z2 to the Z61, which allows for commercial activity. When you look at the community development plan, chapter 6, the comprehensive plan in chapter 6, it specifically deals with the hospital district and the 4th Street. I just want to call out to everyone's attention that essentially you can read for yourself, but the growth in this area hasn't been well defined. It goes on to state in 1992, it was pointed out that we really need to do something in terms of looking at the medical district, what it means to Mason City, what it means to growth, but taking into consideration the existing neighborhoods and what the impact will mean to them. So for this reason, it's recommended a master plan for the development of this quarter be undertaken, that an appropriate zoning mechanism be established to ensure that the recommendations in the master plan to deal with these serious issues are implemented. And that's what we're about today. This goes into what was submitted under the planning and zoning. Question here I have in terms of property value. We were told during the meeting that there was not money available for the city to do an assessment of what the impact would be in terms of appraisals, and so that was not a point of consideration. And then I read, and this essentially says that the new orientation of the street, that's when it's eliminated, will actually improve the view in the neighborhood, and I differ with that. Preliminary site plan, there's a number of items that have to be covered. We feel they're incomplete. This is the area that's impacted by the zoning. Essentially, number 8, is there an additional site for suggested use? Yes, there is. This is 2 years ago. These are the properties that were removed. These are the properties that are still in place, and a question mark to us. Traffic flow, still not determined. The point here was made, this is a very significant drop in traffic volume. Essentially, there's 4,000 vehicles a week. There's no road. Where are they going to go? This is what we look at, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very kindly.
Hi, I'm Mindy Knightsky. I live at 85 Linden Drive. I'm Eric's wife. Can we go back to the last slide? And when you flip through, if you happen to go by the map, I wanted to mention, all those homes that were marked in blue, all those tabs on the map, those are properties owned by Mercy, which kind of give us concern in our neighborhood in terms of where the growth is going. So I'm going to read my prepared statement, and I'll read it quickly. 4 years ago, we had a choice, move to Mason City, Iowa, or Annapolis, Maryland. We looked at home prices, cost of living, quality of life, crime, education, etc., and decided to move to Iowa. Our reasoning was, why not keep more of what we earn by living in an affordable place that offers reasonable housing, solid people, and a good place for our son to grow up? Our realtor can attest that although we saw many homes in Clear Lake, Forest City, Garner, we even looked at Austin, Minnesota because of their schools and because of the Blue Zone designation, and other parts of Mason City, we kept revisiting the idea of the house on Linden, which we jokingly called the Enchanted House. The thick wood trim, leaded glass windows, wood floors, and exterior accents were more than we could hope to purchase in a newer area. We'd also owned and remodeled homes in established areas of Milwaukee and Chicago. Areas with unique homes, craftsmanship, and mature trees have been good investments in our experience. We also like the neighborly atmosphere that comes with sidewalks. As far as living near the hospital, that's our house, and by the way, it is the house of a former mayor, Ken Pugh. And I would beg you to consider if we would even be standing here if Ken Pugh still lived in this house. I don't think that we would. But we've never made any formal complaints about the helicopter noise from the hospital. We've been in support of improvements and changes such as the ER. And at first when we heard about this project, we really weren't very alarmed. However, as we looked at the plans, measured out on foot how close this was to our home, and considered the ramifications to the quality of life with increased traffic and noise, this started to look like a very bad idea. Not only is this a project that eats into our tree canopy, the backdrop of our neighborhood, which cannot be replaced for decades, but most importantly, this project will devalue our home. And we didn't buy our home 30 years ago, so we'll certainly be underwater. At the Planning and Zoning meeting, there was discussion regarding impact to home values. No one could say for sure, they said. I will tell you one thing for sure. This will not increase my home value $1. Other cities have established areas where the homes are highly sought after for their craftsmanship. Ours would be, but our neighborhood is being systematically dismantled, and it scares buyers away. And now add this unpredictable lurch in our direction, and all that money we save by moving here, we'll lose on our house. Some people might be surprised by the number of children in our area. 9 kids on just my block of Linden. When you include visiting grandkids, that number doubles. Oak and Beaumont have similar numbers of children. It's a great place for young families who want a nice home. Do you think a realtor is going to bring young families to my house now for a showing? Do you think any mother envisions her child learning to ride a bike on a street with 9 to 12 semis a day coming through? Traffic will naturally reroute to my street because another one no longer exists for the public. These are real safety issues and quality of life issues. Adequate information has not been given for a yes vote on this. And another thing while we're on the topic of home values, how is anyone supposed to know what part of our neighborhood is safe from development when Mercy does not make their long-range plans available? Isn't this what zoning is for, to protect me? I wasn't privy to a rumor mill mentioned at the planning meeting about what Mercy will do next when I moved here from North Carolina. Am I out of luck and thousands of dollars, or is the city going to protect my investment with prudent zoning and transparent planning? Do not approve this rezoning. I also feel like my neighborhood is being systematically devalued. Other homeowners might have had an option of buyout and not been asked to share a block with a commercial project. We've been offered the hope of a fence and some new trees, which will do little to block out the noise, light, odor, and vibration of a commercial loading dock, and this is number 13 on the zoning checklist. One of our neighbors told me she was assured there'd be a plant screening around the new ER, and she lives at the corner of Beaumont and Linden. While the Hope project does look nice, go to the corner of Beaumont and Linden and tell me if you think those plants are screening anything. Mercy is a big part of this community, and no one wants to deny them the ability to grow and further contribute to this area. They can grow up. They can have zoning change so their buildings can be taller. They can look at putting things on property they already own. They can put generators on top of buildings once they retrofit them for more support, or they can use the space where Macaulay Hall is. This is another case similar to the parking garage versus parking lots. Parking lots are cheaper, but garages take less land. Who is going to pay for the savings Mercy will enjoy by taking the easy way out? Me, the homeowner, if the city allows it. Please do not pass this request.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I'm Doug Campbell, 1011 West State Street, 2 doors down from Eric and Mindy. I moved to Mason City January 8th of 1979, so I have a little bit of understanding of the history of this town and neighborhoods and things. I'll just go ahead and read so I don't make any mistakes or miss anything. Adjoining properties in Mercy hospitals are going to pay a heavier personal price for this project than anybody else in the city. This northern expansion, we are not adjoining properties now, but we will be. Right behind my house, Mercy has put a really nice little park. I see their employees coming out, lunch there. Really nice place. I really enjoy that. I really appreciate that. But it has always been said the hospital is never going to go north. You talk to the administrators, you talk to the realtors, you talk to everybody, we're never going north. So buying my property was a good investment, the potential of appreciation value, good resale potential, and was worth the investment to maintain the property, to almost unlimited improve the property. It was a good investment. I wanted to live there, nice neighborhood, good investment. Nice neighbors. Adjoining, I'm going to get very specific here. Adjoining Mercy properties are valued at between $57.66 to $57.76 per square foot for taxable value. That's a 10% difference in valuation. So those are Mercy properties, all the little blue dots up there. There's a 10% difference in taxable value. Just taking two comparable properties, we'll take one comparable property, 11 Asbury Place, okay, out in Asbury, $57.76, top end. Rock of Glen on East State, $57.75 is the taxable rate per square foot of those properties. Pretty nice properties. I wouldn't mind living in one of those. But when you get to the Forest Park area, the highest valued property in that area, in our vicinity, we go up to $64.94 a square foot. There's a reason for that. It's a nice place. It has trees, it has atmosphere. It has ambience, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean, who doesn't want to live across from Central Park, New York? So anyway, we are among the highest taxable values in the city. And if we were to have all adjoining properties fall down into this 5776 area, okay, historical. And so I am, specifically my property is valued at $60.53 a square foot. So based on these exacting figures in square feet, you can say that my property will lose in value, taxable valuation, $16,000 to $41,000. That's just my property. That's in those figure spreads. So, long story short, I'm personally sort of financing this project to the tune of those numbers. You're losing taxable value, and I'm losing a real chunk of change, just put it in the vernacular. I appreciate what the hospital wants to do. I do not want to deny them their loading dock. I think they need the loading dock. I just don't like losing that kind of value in the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Deb Jones, 77 Linden Drive. Eric and Mindy are my neighbors. I'd like to start by recognizing that Mercy is a vital part of Mason City, and I also feel that each one of us plays a vital part in Mason City by choosing to live here. The project benefits Mercy. It does not benefit the Forest Park neighborhood. The proposed project will make it easier for some employees to do their jobs that work at Mercy now, but the proposed project does not create any new employment positions. The proposed project does not add, nor does it preserve the integrity of our neighborhood. The proposed project will just destroy a half a block in Forest Park. Oh, no, wait, it'll be more than a half a block. It'll be the entire block and everybody on the surrounding streets because of the traffic increase. This project will destroy our rights to quiet enjoyment of our own homes. It will be extremely detrimental to the value of our homes. No one will want to purchase any one of our beautiful homes with loading dock and a power plant right in the backyard. I know Mercy feels like, you know, with a little buffer, we'll do it, but you know, a lot of us aren't that young that we're going to see the profits of that by seeing those trees grow that big. We feel we need your help too in help protecting our investments that we've made in our homes. I ask you to please explore the other possibilities and consider other options for this. And as Ms. Marina said earlier, please take your time and consider everything carefully. Don't just push it through. It's been this way for many, many years, and they've adapted to it. They make it work. So please, please be careful considering these options. Thank you.
Thank you.
Constance Moeni, 75 Linden Drive. Ladies and gentlemen, regarding the regarding the rezoning, this is going to create such an incredible hardship on all of us in the area, with the increase in noise, the lights and glare from the street lights that they'll put up and the trucks that are going through, odor from fumes, exhaust, vibration from trucks, danger to children. In the area where I live next door to Deb and her husband, and they have a lot of grandchildren come and visit them. And we will have a small driveway which will go right onto that roadway, and that's the only way we can actually get out because our driveways are in the back. So if those children are chasing a ball and it runs into the street, they're so young they could easily run after the ball. We'll have increased dirt and dust, and especially during construction for 2 or 3 years, we will never be able to open our windows and have fresh air during the nice time of year when we want to have fresh air. So we'll have to keep our windows closed, increase our electric bills by having the air conditioning on all summer long. I wanted to mention something about the benefits of the trees. And trees absorb as much as 48 pounds of carbon dioxide per year, and they provide a supply of oxygen for 2 people. Trees properly placed around buildings can reduce air conditioning needs by 30% and save 25 to 50% in energy used for heating. The net cooling effect of a young, healthy tree is equivalent to 10 room-sized air conditioners operating 20 hours a day. In one day, one large tree can lift up to 100 gallons of water out of the ground and discharge it into the air. For every 5% of tree cover added to a community, stormwater runoff is reduced by approximately 2%. Healthy trees provide wildlife habitat and contribute to the social and economic well-being of landowners and community residents. Urban heat island effects. The EPA urban heat island effects: reduced energy use, trees and vegetation that directly shade buildings, decreased demand for air conditioning, improved air quality and lower greenhouse gas emissions by reducing energy demand. Trees and vegetation decrease the production of associated air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions, and remove air pollutants and store and sequester carbon dioxide. There's enhanced stormwater management and water quality. Vegetation reduces runoff and improves water quality by absorbing and filtering rainwater. And as I mentioned earlier, the other time I spoke, they're going to have so much concrete there will be very little green. It will only be in the greens in the special zone in the back. Reduced pavement maintenance. Tree shade can slow deterioration of street pavement. Improved quality of life, a steady value in habitat. I want to mention something also about it, that hospital patients, here's a note, recovering from surgery who had a view of a grove of trees through their windows required fewer pain relievers, experienced fewer complications, and left the hospital sooner than similar patients who had a view of a brick wall. And that's what patients, if they're looking out a window, would see. Symptoms of attention deficit disorder in children are relieved after contact with nature. They're better able to concentrate, complete tasks, and follow directions after playing in natural settings. The greener the setting, the more relief. Trees help girls succeed. On average, greener a girl's view from the home, the better she concentrates and the better her self-discipline, enabling her to make more thoughtful choices and do better in school. Trees reduce crime. Trees in urban parks and rec areas are estimated to improve outdoor leisure and recreation. Use of nature reduce the stress response of both body and mind when stressors of urban conditions are present. A typical community forest of 10,000 trees will retain approximately 10 million gallons of rainwater per year. I don't know how many trees are in Forest Park, but I would imagine that there's many thousands of trees in Forest Park, because just on that one side of the street we counted about 95 to 100 trees just on First Street Southwest. Trees reduce noise pollution by absorbing sounds. A belt of trees 98 feet wide and 49 feet tall can reduce highway noise by 6 to 10 decibels. Leafy tree canopies, which is what we have, catch precipitation before it reaches the ground, allowing some of it to gently drip and the rest to evaporate. This lessens the force of storms and reduces runoff and erosion. 100 mature tree crowns intercept 100,000 gallons of rainfall per year, reducing runoff and providing cleaner water. A modest increase of 10% canopy over cover in the New York City was shown to reduce peak ozone levels by up to 4 parts per billion, or by nearly 3% of the maximum, and 37% of the amount by which the area exceeded its air quality standard. Landscaping with trees can significantly increase property values. An example, value of 9%, $15,000 was determined in a U.S. tax court case for the loss of a large black oak on property valued at $164,500. So you can multiply that by about 60. The net cooling effect of young, healthy trees equivalent to 10 room-sized air conditioners. Also, one thing I wanted to mention was that trees around the world have been used to find drugs, and we don't know what they might find, in the Forest Park area, but around the world they have drugs.
Ms. Momenon.
5 minutes.
Yeah, your time is correct. Thank you very much. And we do have a listening post, as we always do every Tuesday evening.
Hi, my name is Karen Campbell. I live at 1011 West State Street, and I'm here to talk about the rezoning. I've lived in Mason City for about 30 years, and 26 of those 30 years, I have lived in the Forest Park area. We lived on 2nd Northwest for 20 years, and then moved 5 years ago to our present location. The word on the street has always been, Mercy will never move north. And so when we bought our home, as my husband said, we just thought it was a great investment, a great area. We love it there. We love the area. We never wanted to leave Forest Park. Over the years, the hospital has done a lot of expanding. I remember when I first moved here, the Parkway was there, the school. I remember all those changes. And that was, you know, needed, and they just keep spreading, they keep growing. The difference is that they have purchased all the properties that they've removed. And one case is, a gal I know, her house was assessed at around 80,000, and the hospital, after coming to her many, many times, paid around 200,000 for her home. And, you know, this is what has happened, is they paid so much money for all these homes that they've moved, and all we're getting from this is decreased property values and a fence. And I'm sorry, I'm not okay with that. I mean, they need to be more fair. They call us neighbors, and they need to be more neighborly. Neighbors treat neighbors with respect, and we expect that, especially if they're gonna call us neighbors. I guess I appreciate you listening to us. I appreciate you doing this job, and I'm so glad we're in a free country that we can get up and express our thoughts and our concerns, and someone really does care and listen. I guess my question to you is, if you received this letter, and this was the proposed thing behind your houses where you live now, each one of you, and I was on the city council, how would you want me to vote? Please give it some heart, and please take it into sincere consideration, because someday someone might be asked to do this to you and what you own and your investment. And I hope and pray they make the right choice, and I hope and pray I'd make the right choice, because I think it's a serious one. It sounds simple, like take some houses down, take some trees down. It won't be a big deal, but it is a big deal. And I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
My name is Athena Bells. I live at 1024 West State Street. I would like to speak to the issue of traffic in the Forest Park neighborhood as it relates to this proposed zoning change. I referenced the change of zoning checklist that was provided by the Planning and Zoning Commission, which lists practical questions to be asked when considering rezoning of an area. One of the questions asks, would granting the rezoning create or worsen traffic problems? The proposed zoning change would allow First Street Southwest to become a private service drive for hospital use only. According to the city engineer, Mark Ram, a traffic counter was deployed on First Street Southwest during the period of August 12th through August 18th, and the traffic count total for that week was 3,696 vehicles that accessed that street just during that week. Mercy Medical Center anticipates a significant drop in the number of vehicles using that street once it's a private drive, obviously. It's not reassuring, although, or comforting to know that traffic will be decreased on the north side of the hospital as they suggest. Instead, it results in more traffic closer to our homes. The majority of the traffic currently using the street will no longer have access to it and will therefore have to find an alternate route. The view, well, there was a map that showed the remaining streets. Obviously, it's Linden, West State, Taylor, South Taylor. It shows the remaining routes. The traffic will substantially increase on Linden, West State, and South Taylor in order to travel east and west. They will no longer have First Street Southwest. We currently have parking allowed only on one side of all of those streets. Our streets are some of the narrowest in Mason City because they're some of the oldest. And this allows for only one vehicle to travel the street at a time because of the parking. During the winter, when the snow ordinance is in effect, there's actually times, usually between 4 and 8 p.m., when there's parking on both sides of the streets, because that's the time allowed to move from one side to the other. That creates some real congestion. So it's inevitable that our streets will end up with more traffic and obviously more congestion. There are approximately 35 school-age and younger children living on the affected streets. Increased traffic, of course, poses potential danger to them. We will be getting instead are 7 straight trucks, 9 semi-trucks, and 2 to 4 food trucks per day on First Street Southwest. But there'll be less car traffic. It's with sincere hope that the creation of traffic problems for our neighborhood be considered in this request for rezoning and the subsequent impact on the safety and the quality of life in our neighborhood. And it's my hope that as a city council, you will, I guess, recognize our efforts at being good citizens and in advocating for our homesteads and in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Diana Jargle, 1140 West State Street. I am a transplant here to Mason City, moving here from Wisconsin 5 years ago to be with my husband, who is a lifelong resident of Mason City. My in-laws purchased our home at 1140 West State in 1967. My husband purchased it from them in 2003. When I met my husband and came to Mason City for the first time, I was amazed at the neighborhood he lived in. Being in the trades, I'm an interior painter, it's my job to look at details at homes. The variety of homes in our neighborhood, capes, two-door revivals, and all of the bungalows. Exterior details of eyebrow windows, hand-carved granite reliefs, round doors, hand-cut stone that was made here in Mason City. Interior details, crown moldings, trims, built-ins that are no longer the norm. Then and now, middle-class homes. As you are aware, some of the homes set to be demolished, the home that is set to be demolished was put on First Street Southwest in 1915. Moved from downtown for a reason. It's also the oldest home in Forest Park. Now that the hotel is complete and Mason City is now bringing in more tourists and visitors, if they happen to find their way to First Street Northwest, try and imagine their surprise coming down the street and seeing this fabulous canopy of trees, the wonderful homes, the different types of homes, after seeing Rock Glen and East Straight Street to find our little neighborhood. I ask you to try and look at our neighborhood through fresh eyes, not always being here in Mason City and taking it for granted. We are as unique as Rock Glen and River Heights. Until the homes are moved or demolished or turned into rentals and left to be deteriorated, which Mercy has done. The comprehensive plan that that Mason City has put forth includes our neighborhood. It's as it is historic from many perspectives, including the history of those who lived here. I am asking that Mercy, the City Council, and all of the residents of Forest Park find a way to let the hospital expand without destroying what they cannot bring back. We found that out with the mall. You cannot bring back what you tear down. Trinity Healthcare, which owns Mercy, said their integrity program said it better than I can, and this is a quote. Trinity Health is not only concerned with compliance with laws and regulations, but also with behaviors and actions consistent with our mission and values. Compliance asks the question, can we do this? Integrity asks the question, should we do this? Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I am Rod Slater. I'm the interim CEO at Mercy, and I'm here to address Mercy's request for zoning change for the 11 properties that Mercy owns along First Street Southwest. This issue really is about patient care. We do put our patients at risk today because we don't have the proper generating system. And if you're sitting in a bed in the hospital in critical care and our power happens to go out, what would you do? I actually lived this during Memorial Day weekend. Our power was out for 2 or 3 hours. And we're at the point of trying to figure out what to do with our 140 patients in a bed. If we transport those patients, their life is at risk. The Energy Center will provide us with a state-of-the-art emergency generator. Our current aging electrical system does not properly support the energy needs of our facility. Mercy's energy needs have changed greatly with more patients, more employees, and more technology. Since our generators were installed, our organization has grown 8 times the size. Our generators, the newest one is a 1973 model. Backup generators are not hooked to our current air conditioning system, which is common practice in the past. This needs to be addressed. With the addition of the new generators, Mercy would be energy self-sufficient if needed, and would be able to continue to serve patients in the case of extended power outage or natural disaster. With our proposed plan, we will locate the new generators in a reinforced storm-proof building similar to the shelters of the Mason City School District is building. The other part of this project includes a new loading dock and warehouse space. The existing dock is more than 50 years old and is not a safe situation for our associates who unload the trucks. Additionally, Mercy does not have sufficient on-site warehouse space on the East Campus to house the supplies as they are received from vendors. Currently, supplies are delivered to our West Campus and then gradually transported back to the East Campus for use in patient care areas. Handling the supplies twice is extremely inefficient. It's not value added. It's waste. This needs to be addressed. We're all paying for that waste. We know this is difficult for our neighbors, and we're doing everything we can to minimize the impact of the neighborhood. We're working with a local landscape architect to create a buffer zone between the project site and the houses behind it. We have conducted 2 open forum meetings with the residents living in the Forest Park neighborhood. From these meetings, we have taken suggestions and adjusted our proposed building plans accordingly. Here are some of the changes we have made as a result of this feedback. We'll maintain the house and garage at 63 Linden Drive and modify a new access drive. We will maintain and upgrade the garage located on 1002 First Street Southwest as an additional buffer. We have moved the location of the proposed fence and trees and bushes to the center of the 35-foot buffer space. Adding additional green space to backyards, and we will work with the fence around the existing trees. We're being flexible on the height and materials of the proposed fence in the buffer area. We now propose to put the utilities to the under the new street so we do not harm existing tree root systems. We took out the stormwater detention pond in favor of a permeable pavement. We anticipate the change in truck traffic to our loading dock area to be a net increase of 4 trucks per day. However, we believe the overall traffic in the area will decrease if the council approves dedicating the street to a private drive. This should mitigate concerns about air and noise pollution. Once this project is complete, Mercy does not anticipate further expansion, either north or west of the current hospital. Our future expansion plans would be vertical, adding floors to the existing hospital building. This project has been carefully planned to achieve the goals of both the new energy center and enhanced loading dock and warehousing space. I've worked at Mercy for 23 years, and I've spent a considerable amount of time with others studying various options. Believe me, if we had others, we would move forward in that. I'd like to thank you for your consideration of the project.
Thank you, sir. David.
Good evening. My name is Robert Overby, 1601 6th Place Southeast. I am a new transplant to Mason City. I moved here a month ago from Minnesota. I also have about 25 years experience in city planning and zoning background, having worked with comp plan changes and rezonings. And I have a couple of procedural questions. I looked at the 2006 comp plan, and I looked at parts of the zoning and browsed a little bit of Iowa state law. In Minnesota, the state law requires that before doing a rezoning, let me back up. The future 2006 land use map and the 2006 comprehensive plan of Mason City shows the proposed area affected by the rezoning as low-density residential, I believe, unless that's been amended since 2006. It's depending on what Iowa law requires. It seems like you would have to have an amendment to that future land use map either prior to acting on the rezoning or concurrent with the rezoning, so that what I'm trying to say is because your comprehensive plan should guide your rezoning decisions, at least in my experience, cities have always wanted to lay the groundwork showing how the plan would support a proposed rezoning and then take a separate action on the rezoning based on that. The staff can advise you on that tonight or separately. I didn't see it in the staff report from tonight or from the Planning and Zoning Commission any mention of amending the future land use map or a finding that this would be consistent with that change. And the other point was that there was a mention about in 1992 that the city plan talked about analyzing this area of Mason City to see what future land uses should be. And I didn't see, in my quick review of the city plan at City Hall this afternoon, I didn't see any details about that area. I saw mention of the growth area southwest of the hospital and other places. So I understand that the city council technically cannot revise the proposal before you. You can work with the hospital if they're amenable to that, otherwise you only have the choice of voting it up or down as proposed. But you could also convey your willingness to look at other options, as some speakers mentioned before, and then in the meantime or concurrently, maybe you could do a special area plan for that neighborhood, because what I saw, the map of the neighborhoods of Mason City includes both the hospital and the residential area. But again, I saw no specific language about that neighborhood and how the city should deal with both preservation and growth development proposals. So a couple suggestions for you.
Thank you.
Cheryl Girk, 1152 East State, which was my grandparents' house, and I also own property in this affected area following the attempt of my life. An attempt on my life that I was taken to Mercy against my will through a councilman who ran an ambulance service and where critical injuries of suffocation were left off medical records. That does not comport with the values Mercy has. Tonight we got to meet the interim CEO. What everybody is forgetting here, and as everyone knows, I've been to a lot of meetings. And patiently listening, you store information away. And everybody knows I have a great memory. You had an employee by the name of Joe LaValle, who initially was with the Globe Gazette, then became a public relations for Mercy, and then went to night school to become a vice president. You'll excuse me, I'm not 100% of what the vice president was, that's half of the salary. But at a P&Z meeting in which you were, we received that same promise that the CEO tonight gave. At that time, Mr. LaValle turned to the other two, who I believe was current CEO and another one, and said he wasn't just speaking because he had been asked, what was Mercy's long-term plan? And Joe LaValle said they had consulted with Michigan, which I understand is Trinity, which is the corporate to really liability. At that time, he promised that they had 25 and 40-year plans. He indicated that they knew that the area that they called resident housing first was not in a sightly area of the hospital. And so they had purchased these houses because it provided two things. It provided a buffer for the neighborhood, and two, it made real easy access for the medical residents to go there. The question was asked of him, what if something would happen? What if there would be a storm, trees would come down? What were Mercy's plans for this street? And Joe LaValle and the other two, Mercy said, it will either be green space, a meditative garden, for which we've heard that they have this small little park where people picnic, or they said, we will not ask for any change of zoning. We are limited to zoning, and we will not ask for any change of zoning. How much Mercy's promises were. He indicated that the very worst thing that could ever be there would be a one-story, in keeping with the neighborhood, residential-looking office building that would be just foot traffic, maybe diabetes education or wellness center or something of that type. Well, tonight we're here and it's not 25 or 40 years, and all the promises made by Mercy don't have much meaning. We realize that there's a lot of politics here. And as for Mercy being a good neighbor, 2 weeks ago they mowed the lawn and the grass went into the street. It's against city ordinance. Mr. Trout wasn't too concerned about it. All they did was just kind of blow it back, which means it's going to go into the stormwater system. They were told that there wouldn't be trucks. Last night, Labor Day, there was a full-length semi sideways on that street after any type of business working hours. They have not furnished, all you have to do is look at their campus. The Mason City Transit bus is supposed to go through this circular drive. It's yellow lined, there are big signs that say no parking, etc., etc., and yet it's always parked full. They've got a great big truck shredding today, the city bus couldn't get through. They can't regulate the parking, and we've had people come since the new emergency room, and they have some type of emergency happen, and they are so confused with the streets in the area in Mercy that they pull into somebody's driveway with a ski-doo attached behind them because they couldn't find parking at the emergency room. And this young kid, and it took a couple of hours to find somebody in the neighborhood because the woman had to go to work, and here we are. Now these poor people that have access only from the back, I guarantee you, you're going to be blocked in many, many times. The fact that the mayor's wife is a doctor and in his...
Ms. Kirk, your time has expired. Well, obviously time when you got to my wife, but I appreciate you getting to her. All right. Anybody else? All right, going once, twice. All right, we will close the public hearing. I will read the ordinance again. This will be on first. Ordinance amending Title 12 of the City Code, it being the zoning ordinance of said city and changing the boundaries of certain districts therein, Zone Z2, Suburban District, to Z7 Specific Use District for property generally located on the north side of the First Campus on First Street Southwest between South Taylor Avenue and Linden Drive in the city of Mason City, Iowa. Do we have a motion? Motion to approve. Thank you, Mr. Kuhn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Tornquist. Mr. Kuhn.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll do my best to keep it 5 minutes. First, I want to thank everyone for being here. Whether at the end of this I end up agreeing with you all or not, I think I've said this on many issues, it's important for people to be involved and express their concerns and be involved in our process. So I thank you all. I talked to a number of you at the planning and zoning meeting on August 14th and have had a lot of calls from the Forest Park neighbors. Talked to a lot of people at Mercy about the accommodations they're making, and also just people throughout the community that aren't directly affected by this. I think Ms. Campbell stated it pretty well when you're talking about how this affects you directly. Obviously, this isn't in my backyard, so I understand your guys' your concern about this, but I hope we don't turn. Obviously, it's a not in my backyard type of issue, but I don't want it to become a Mercy versus Forest Park issue. I think we need to look at this in terms of how it benefits the community as a whole. So that's my quick preamble before I give my views on this. But I think Mercy has done a very good job as far as being open, transparent, and ethical about this process. They had 2 open forums with the neighborhood, the planning and zoning meeting, which was unanimously approved and recommended to us. ESAC, Environmental Stewardship Advisory Commission, which I sit on, we had a meeting about this last week, I believe it was, to discuss the trees. And again, I think Mr. Knightsky, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, was at our meeting the month before, but we had a good discussion about that as well at the last meeting. In my mind, Mercy has done a good job of consistently working to try to accommodate the needs of the neighbors and be a good neighbor, like some of the questions from the Forest Park neighborhood. In my mind, there's really 4 issues that have been brought to the front as far as calls to me and emails. Traffic and noise, I guess I'll put those into one issue, say 3. Traffic and noise, spot zoning has come up, and then the home appraisals and what Mercy is doing there. The traffic and noise, we've had an engineering report that says that roughly 600 vehicles during the work days, about 350 on weekends for roughly 3,700 vehicles a week. As if this does go through, the truck traffic would be increased by 4 trucks, but the overall traffic would be decreased. And also that the truck traffic, when you talk about noise and that being a nuisance, that the loading dock traffic would be all be done during the work hours and not at night when a lot of those concerns arise. The spot zoning issue, obviously I'm not an attorney by trade, but agree with our staff that this is not spot zoning, it's just an extension of what is currently there. We're not picking out a zone, just saying here in the middle we're rezoning this spot. This is an extension of what is already there. That's just my personal opinion and agree with staff's recommendation on that. The home appraisals, obviously we have no mechanism in place to say in the future this is what your home's going to be appraised at. That's just not, we don't have the have that opportunity right now. Again, I think Mercy's done a good job as far as with their landscape architect, as far as increased buffers, the cedar fence. And as I'm looking out here, I'm seeing a lot of people not agree with me, but that's fine. But I think they have done a good job of trying to move that further to the north to accommodate the neighbors that would be directly to, where the fence would be directly to the south of their property. And again, to talk in a large scheme of things that, again, not a Mercy versus Forest Park issue. This is a community issue as far as disaster resistance, having hundreds of critical care patients that could potentially not have to be moved in a situation like that is not something that I want in our community. So again, it becomes a safety issue as a community as a whole. When we talk about the language in the comprehensive plan, has language to prioritize some of Mercy's development in there, and obviously that comprehensive plan came from large amounts of community input. I'm looking at the clock, I'm not going to finish my comments in 5 minutes, that's all right, I'll get it on the second round. I guess I'll just stop there and wrap up the rest, and look forward to hearing my colleagues' comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick note, when council members sit and they listen and they're very attentive, folks in the gallery should be respectful of them while they're speaking. Please, just have a little bit of respect. They're listening to you, so please listen to where their views are at, okay? Mr. Tornquist.
I doubt if I'll get done in 5 minutes either, but I don't think we're under any certain time constraint tonight, so we can certainly extend the debate if any others have comments that we want to continue having. This is one of those issues when it's really tough to be a council person because we have 2 opinions that are diametrically opposed. You know, it's one of those deals where no matter what you do, somebody's going to be unhappy. No matter what you do, somebody's going to claim you didn't listen to them. The unhappiness is a foregone conclusion, I'm afraid, but I can honestly say that I am listening to both sides, although that may not be your perspective of the outcome. I don't have a problem approving this on first reading tonight. Remember, this is a deal that goes through 3 readings. If we were dealing with this on 3rd reading tonight with some of the unknowns that I have, I doubt very seriously if I'd be able to approve it on 3rd reading. But I don't have a problem with first reading, and I'll share with you where I think we need to go over the next couple of readings. First of all, some things that are non-issues for me. I'm speaking as an individual, I'm not speaking for the group. The disposition of the homes and the trees. As far as I'm concerned, if we talk about trees, we're wasting time. Mercy owns the homes, Mercy owns the trees. They can do whatever they want with them, and there's nothing the city council can do about that. I have no more obligation to get my neighbor's permission before I cut down a tree on my lot because of the way it shades his house or reduces his energy bill or any other factor than he has to get my permission to cut down a tree on his lot. Mercy owns the trees, they own the homes. As far as I'm concerned, they could go cut them all down tomorrow. And there's nothing any of us can do about it. So for me, the trees and the houses are a non-issue. What's an issue for me is moving the street. Why do we have to move the street? I'm not convinced we have to move the street because of the loading dock, but I am convinced we need the loading dock and we need it. I'm not convinced we have to move the street because of the energy center, but I'm convinced we need the energy center, and I'm convinced the energy center is in the right place. So, for me to get to a point where I concur with vacating the street, I have to understand, one, that we have no other options for the loading dock, and I think that's probably a pretty easy sell just looking at the way the facility is laid out, but I want to hear that. And two, and more importantly, I need to understand the funding mechanism for the project, because it's my current understanding that the energy center is funded and the loading dock is not. And I'm not interested in vacating the street if we're not also going to build a loading dock. Because I think, unless you can convince me otherwise, that we could do the energy center without moving the street. So I have to clearly understand the path for funding for the loading dock before I can get all the way to brag on vacation of the street. Now, several of you have mentioned tonight, my phone call last night, try to put myself in your shoes. I do that with most issues that we deal with that are controversial. Not just this issue. That doesn't make you guys unique by any stretch of the imagination. Again, this is a deal where people are going to be happy and people are going to be unhappy. There's nothing we can do about that. Our job as elected people in the community, and the reason we're elected is because we've got 28,000 people here, and there's no way 28,000 people can make this decision efficiently. There would never be a decision made. So as a community, we elect representatives, and it's our job to represent the community and make the decision we think is in the best interest of the community. Not individual property owners, not an individual business, but the entire community. And in fact, my wife and I talked at dinner right before I came to the council meeting. And I said, you know, Patty, there's not a doubt in my mind that if I had one of these 10 homes that backed up against this project, I wouldn't like it, and I'd be at the podium trying to stop the project. I would not like it. But I said, you know what? I also, and that's what I think, how I think I would respond. But I know, under no uncertain circumstances, that if I had one of those homes, and my wife, or my kids, or my folks, or my grandkids were in the hospital at Mercy, I would want to make sure that that was the very best facility that was available to them. And I know I feel that way because my next door neighbor has been in and out of the hospital all summer, and he was there when power was lost in May. That is personal. I can relate to that. It's harder for me to relate to living in one of those homes, but I can relate for the need for us to provide the very best care that we can. And it's not just the 28,000 people that live in Mason City. Mason City serves a 14-county region that serves tens and tens of thousands of people, probably closer to 100,000 people. I don't know the exact number. And so the decision we're making impacts a lot more than just 10 individual properties. We're very sensitive to that, but we have to look at the entire community. I'm out of time also.
Yeah, and we can extend debate as we go along. So. Anybody else? Ms. Solberg?
I had the opportunity, I don't know if my mic is working or not. I had the opportunity to drop by the area. Thank you. I've been in Forest Park neighborhood quite a bit lately, and just before I got here tonight, I stopped just to see what the noise level was like at this point in time. And needless to say, when I got to these folks' backyard, I was very disappointed in what I heard. And my number one question is are they even in compliance with a noise ordinance right now? To me, on the west side of the house, it was really, really loud. And when I walked around to the east side of the house, it was horrible. I can't even imagine that they're passing any noise solutions here right at the moment, but that's beside the point. These people couldn't possibly sit outside and enjoy the outdoors with their friends, neighbors, family, whatever. There's no way they could sleep in their upstairs bedrooms with windows open, and I was shocked and appalled at all the noise coming there, and they happened to be on State Street. I too have dealt with Mercy Hospital since I worked there from 1979 till about 1981 or so. I worked for Mr. LaValle, in whom Cheryl referred to earlier, under Dave Valing as being the CEO. We also heard that numerous times, that they were not going to expand to the north. So if you weren't telling me anything, that surprised me. I just have a question as to why this wouldn't have been on Mercy's mind to do this expansion to the north after the disaster in 2008 and prior to the building of the new ER off to the east. To me, that kind of shocks me that this expansion would be happening. I used to work in the emergency room as well, and it was under renovations back then. I think it's gone under 3 or 4 renovations since I've been there. But I also know that this neighborhood is being considered for a historical significance. I don't know what type of impact this would have on that, if any. I know the residents have been there for a really long time, and as I've heard a lot of folks get up and speak tonight, I know they bought their homes there for a reason. They are beautiful homes. The streets are very narrow. I can't imagine what that's like if you get a semi down those. I know there's only parking on one side of the street, and when the Mercy employees park on the other side of the street, it makes it very difficult for these folks to park in front of their homes, have visitors, different things like that, because I can't park in front of their home. I usually have to walk a block to get where I want to be. Some of these things need to be looked at and, you know, be considerate of them, because I'm sure a lot of them are Mercy employees. I recently had an issue out in my neighborhood in which a business was compromising people's quality of life, and they had to install a $650,000 fix. And that was very significant for all of us, and it was an issue that we took a long time to work through, and I hope we can get through this with some type of resolution. I'm anxious to hear how all this pans out. I'm not quite sure where I'm going on it yet, but thank you for listening.
Hey, Ms. Solberg. Please, Ms. Brannis.
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned before, part of our job, and part of the staff's job, is to do careful and thoughtful consideration of everything that comes before us. And I think Councilman Turnquist had put it pretty succinctly in the fact that we have to weigh a lot of different issues, and it's not easy. I've not slept well for the last week because of a lot of things that are happening on this particular issue, because we understand that there are 2 different sides to it. I have some questions too about why is there not a compromise that we can come up with. Mercy does own that property, and as Scott said, they could go in tomorrow, cut down the trees and take out all the houses, and you wouldn't have a bit of argument against it, because that's their property. And I think that Mercy's tried very hard to be good neighbors with some of the meetings that they've had. In my understanding, there was a buffer design group that included some neighborhood representatives that were there to say, this is what we'd really like to see, if we can work it into the program. So I think there's got to be a good compromise somewhere along the line. I agree with Mr. Turnquist in the fact that if the funding is there for the energy building, then that can be done. Looking at the plans, it looks like that they could even cut off some of the green space if they have to, and move the street further to the south and leave more of a buffer zone, if you will. Move the fence back, give you more backyards so that you can have more space between what is Mercy and what is your yard. I'm pleased that this is going to be just the first reading, because we have more discussion to have. I think that we're going to come to an agreement on what we have to do, and that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Ms. Brannis. Anybody else? Mr. Lee?
Wow, this is definitely not an easy decision. As of right now, I don't know where I stand. also, this first reading, this is the first big rezoning I've been through in the 9 months as a council person. I come to this from a different perspective than some possibly. I know something very well. I grew up in that neighborhood. I was there when Doug and Karen moved in. I grew up there. I ran through Ken Q's, talked to the mayor of Ken Q's yard. We ran through those yards, running up there with my dollar to get food out of the cafeteria in the hospital. I am a history teacher. I'm on the Historical Preservation Commission, which brings me to a question, Tricia, if you make your way. I have a question for you. Sorry. So, I do have a lot of different perspectives here. And the same thing I think Scott mentioned, when your cards are down, we want the best hospital we possibly have in this city. None of you argue that, I know that. So that's kind of where I come from. And Tricia, we mentioned a couple times tonight the historical impact. Do you want to just real quickly, that study and where it's at, and will this impact that study? Or how will it impact them?
The data collection is going to start, I believe, tomorrow. The consultant from Minneapolis is coming down, it's either tomorrow or next week. And the data that they're collecting is strictly going to be from the exterior, so any data that they collect about the houses could be done without getting inside them, and that would be done within the next month. We don't know of no houses in that neighborhood, and when I say that neighborhood, I mean everything from Willow Creek South to 3rd Street Southwest, from Pierce all the way back over to the Creek or to Crescent Drive. We don't know if any of those structures are individually eligible for the National Register. What we're actually looking for primarily are district nominations. Our consultant does not want to see these structures lost. However, he doesn't feel that the loss of these structures would prohibit an area from being defined as a historical district. So he believes that there's probably enough fabric left in that historical district to still create a district without these houses being here. However, it would be most likely be a larger district if the houses were there, because the houses that would be taken down are fairly intact. They have a lot of their original architectural features. The house that was moved in is most likely the only house that would not be eligible for the district because it wasn't originally from that neighborhood.
Thank you. That's all I just wanted to cover real quick. You know, I kind of agree that when we're sitting here looking at this, some of the issues you guys have, and I would have too, are kind of non-issues. Not to say they want to impact us, but the hospital owns those properties. And they want to cut down every tree and rip apart every home and leave it in a big parking lot, those houses. There's not much we can do about it. They purchased those homes. We're talking about loss of value, and I'm not trying to knock it, but if I had an $80,000 home and I sold it for $200,000, it's not a loss of value. No, I mean, I'm not trying to knock it. I mean, and I don't let people say, well, you can stop them from expanding. Just stop selling to them. And some people have. And then they come with some very nice looking checks, and it'd be very hard for all of us, or any of us, to say, no, thank you. But then you put your neighbors at risk in that expansion. Look at the homes they've purchased. And we hear again, they don't want to move north anymore. They're not going to move north and west. You can understand why a lot of people laughed in here when you said, we don't plan on going north or west any further. We've been through this rodeo quite a few times, and right now we're losing faith or trust in the hospital. But this is something it is needed. The generator's needed. But where it goes is a different question. And I think that's what we've got to sell ourselves on. And we keep hearing you've gone over all the other things. This is the best option. And I do trust you, but I haven't heard the other options why you can't put it on top of the hospital. You just said you could put a couple floors up there. Why not a generator? Why can't we build a parking ramp and attach to it, some other building? I believe Ronald Reagan used to say this Russian proverb: trust but verify. And that's the one we need. It needs some verification. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Lee. Mr. Hickey, do you have anything before we move to response?
I can't say much. I have a lot about the neighborhood and the hospital part of it. I've been out and seen it. I've seen the property lines, and yes, it is right up on the backyards. Again, and this is a hard decision for everybody, but I'm not one that's been a big, I guess, if you own the property, I'm not against land usage for property owners, and I've been that way since I've been on the council, and I've been pretty much pro-growth on almost every project to try and help Mason City grow and expand. And this is where I have trouble with this project. I know from the transportation side industry that I'm in, it's a horrendous area back there to try to deliver goods to that hospital. It's a hazard. It's not safe. It's not safe for hospital staff and their employees, and I know it's not safe for the drivers that try to deliver to that hospital on a daily basis. The energy plant, yeah, I think there's probably some maybe other options where that could possibly go and how that could be designed. I do think the vacating of the First Street would lessen the traffic flow through there. If you're taking 8 to 10 trucks and you're reducing all the car traffic through there, yes, it's going to reduce that car traffic going through that area as well. Is it going to affect State Street? Probably, to some degree. I don't think you're going to get truck traffic going through there if they're coming through the other, off the highway and then back through though. And then the street's vacated on the backside. So I'm going to approve it or move forward with it tonight because I think we can maybe negotiate some things with Mercy. But I do see where there's a need for this as well, and I'm not big on telling people what they can and can't do with the properties either, and that frustrates me. The one thing I can see though is your property values. I don't think as a result of this that your property values are going to go up. I honestly don't, and I wish that was maybe something we could address with Mercy as well, and maybe try to help find ways to help these property owners that may be affected as a result of this project. Whether we can or can't, I don't know, but we can maybe talk about it and discuss it. That's pretty much where I'm at tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey. I have a response.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you all for being here. As you can tell, there's a lot of issues to weigh here. Traffic, the noise, the zoning, the appraisals, the buffer. These are all things we have to take into consideration. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. Obviously, it's just the first reading. I will say, I do want to see Mercy be able to meet their needs and their patients and all of us in the community in the entire North Iowa region, whoever goes to Mercy North Iowa for their medical needs. I also want to see you as a neighborhood to be accommodated as much as possible and come to a kind of a common ground here to meet your concerns. Like it's been well stated, not everyone's going to get everything they want. We're not in that position here. I did have one question about the planning and zoning as far as the P versus the Z, and I'm looking at a new director, if you might be able to come up and address.
I think this would be better from Ms. Sandon.
Some of the people have talked about seeing the plan, and we had a discussion a while ago about Z2 and the differentiating between those two sides. Could you explain a little bit about what Z2 and Mercy, their zoning and the specifications about that?
Well, certainly. The Z6 district is the request. It's we rezoned to Z6, which is a specialized district, and in this case, specialized for healthcare facility. So obviously the rezoning would be from a Z2, which is a suburban district, which is primarily single family, to a specialized Z6, specialized again on healthcare. So through this rezoning, what would be allowed would be this kind of hospital expansion, would not be any other kind of commercial use that would be allowed under the rezoning.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify a little bit for some of those questions that came up. I guess I'll leave it my comments there. I will say to every single person in the room, whether you're a Forest Park resident or live on the far south side, my phone line and email lines are always open, and look forward to working with everyone on this issue, and I'm going to support the first reading tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Jim. Anybody else? Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, I had started going through some of the things that I need to see before we get to third reading. Some of these would be critical before we get to second reading. First of all, we talked about project funding and the impact of funding, and this needs to come from Mercy. The impact of funding on the loading docks, because that directly impacts the request for the vacation of the street. Councilman Lee put it very eloquently, talking about verification and no alternatives. It's one thing to say that we have no alternatives. I don't feel like I need to meet with Mercy, but if I have a staff report, that will make me feel comfortable that we have fully investigated all alternatives and there truly are none other than what's proposed. That would be nice to have before second reading. The gentleman that spoke second to last, perhaps it was last, and consistency with the land use map. That's a very good point. We don't need it addressed tonight, but certainly it needs to be addressed before we finish the process, preferably before we get to second reading. We do need to confirm that we're maintaining consistency with the land use map. We've talked about the net impact of traffic, and to me that's still a little bit ambiguous, and I would like a staff report that zeroes in on that a little bit, and from two perspectives. One, we talk about going from 599 vehicles down to somewhere around, I don't know, 20 to 30. It's kind of hard to figure what the exact number is. And without question, that would seem to have a net positive impact on the area that's currently First Street. However, it would seem that we're trading some gas-fired engines in for diesel, and diesels typically sit and idle. I'd be curious to know if trucks are going to be allowed to sit and idle, because if you think about the height of the Mercy project and where those fumes are going to go, they're going to go towards the neighborhood. They have no other choice. There's a building behind them. And prevailing winds are from the west. We all know that. And so I don't know how we can go about doing this. I'm sure there's people on staff that are smarter than I am that can figure out the net impact of fumes specific to First Street. But then we have a second problem that I'm curious about, and that is, even though we may have a reduction in traffic in the area that's currently First Street, I'm not sure that we really have a net reduction of 500 vehicles, because surely some of those vehicles are using that street right now because they need to be in that area, so they're going to have to find an alternate path. I want to know, from a policy-making perspective, what can we do as a city to protect the integrity of State Street? I guess we should probably address the two streets to the east and to the west as well. Certainly we need to make sure that we protect parking on State Street, but I don't think it's in anybody's best interest to shift through traffic on First Street to become through traffic on State Street. If it's not people that are using State Street now, there shouldn't be people that are using State Street after this project if it moves forward. And I don't know how we address that, but I know we got some really smart people on staff. So we're going to thank you in advance for helping us with that.
We'll work on it.
And then finally,
we'll come back around.
that was three already.
That was fast. I was ready to get done.
I only have one more point.
Yeah, hold on. We'll come back. Anybody else? We'll do it. Anybody else? All right, we're gonna do it real quick. What you want to do a motion to? Yep.
I'll motion.
Yep. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we'll just do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Mr. Strongquist.
Okay, the last point that I wanted to make came from a phone call from a constituent that I got several weeks ago, and it regards neighborhood representation on the board. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and tell Mercy how to run their board, but I think it would be huge for the neighborhood if there could be a neighborhood rep on the Mercy board. It's probably too late to mitigate this project, but I think you've done a lot of things up to this point and will continue to do a lot of things as this project unfolds to try to be the best neighbor that you can. But because of the things particularly that Councilman Lee pointed out and plans change, you know, I don't have any ill will towards Joe LaValle 15 years ago saying there would be an expansion of the north, because things changed. The world is completely different now than it was 15 years ago. If there was a mistake made, he should have never made that comment. That was the mistake. So I think we need to avoid making comments that people are going to remember for a long time that we can never get out of, because none of us can see the future. But to that end, if Mercy can get a neighborhood rep on the board, I think it would go a long ways towards communication and being a neighborhood partner. That's more advice than a request.
Thank you, Mr. Tornquist. Anybody else? All right.
Mr. Mayor, real quick.
Yeah, Mr. Lee.
Just going through my notes, and there's a lot of them, trying to figure out if there's something I want to say now, later, or just call on a phone down the road. There was somebody who mentioned something I just wrote. I think you argued one thing, but you're almost making the argument for the other. A lot of people talk about the traffic, and I don't know who it was, but the truck was vertical on that road, it shut down the road. And well, that's really showing us why we should make that an alleyway, and why we should give that over to the hospital. If they're already clogging it up, obviously it shows the need for that. And I can't remember who it was, there's just notes written down. You talk about all that traffic there, it does kind of give an argument to that side, just like, at least how I heard it. And off kind of what Councilman Tornquist said, could we do something to, you know, I'm not a big fan of one-way at all. It just seemed to get in the way. However, if the one-way would stop people from using State Street as a short thoroughfare around the hospital eventually, is that something the tenants would be interested in? Not saying it is, but I think that's kind of what Mr. Tornquist said. Is there a policy we can do to kind of mitigate that, the traffic impact? Because I agree, we stopped it on First Street. It's going to move the state. A lot of it will. Not all of it, but a lot of it will. And so I agree there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Anybody else? Mr. Ricky.
With the talking about emissions from vehicles, I can tell you this. Most companies nowadays with $4 a gallon diesel have put automatic shutoffs on trucks after 1 minute in most cases, and most companies' policies are to shut off the trucks when they back up to that dock. Now, when you get an extreme cold, there's a chance that the truck can gel up. Then that changes, and the shutoffs don't kick in. But that's usually only when it's below 10 degrees, and in extreme cases. But most cases, they automatically shut them off, and most companies' policies is turn the trucks off. And I'm sure Mercy would hold to that as well, hopefully.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Anybody else on response? All right, we've got a motion and a second on first. Good discussion. A lot of concerns addressed and a lot of information forthcoming. And by the way, I appreciate the communication of the Forest Park neighborhood. It was very commendable. And appreciate the comments up here as well. So, got a motion and a second. Clerk call roll.
Huon.
Yes.
Tornquist.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Marinas.
Yes.
Solberg.
Yes.
Hickey.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. There will be 2 more readings, folks. Of course, there will be a public input listening, folks, as we always have at the end of the meeting. So you'll also, and council members are milling around in between, so you'll have more than enough opportunity to visit with folks. So.